Hi. We have heard there is nothing which has divided the world right now like the Israel Palestinian conflict. From the Middle East, the different countries in the world, right now in the United States of America, there are protests in various universities complaining about the death toll in the Hamas region. And the big question I'm asking is God sending different messages to people? This is going from one of scholars who say that it seems to me that Islam and Christianity and Judaism all have the same God, and he is telling them all different things. That is Bill Conley. I thought that was a is a good statement, which we wonder why we are having all of these differences, and this conflict has left this area for a long time. Then, why is it true that they are getting the same message? It seems like when you look at the history of religion, all of the three religions are based on Abraham, from the descendant of Abraham, the God of Abraham. Now, everybody claims the region, the Holy Land. No, we have all this confusion about we have different religions, Taoism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, but we are specifically looking at Judaism, Christianity, and Islam because all of them originate from one ancestor, Abraham. Now, sometimes people enter into a conflict when they don't know even where the conflict started. It is equally true. I mean, we have had, if you see all the universities, Columbia University, we have had riots and other universities, and the University of North Carolina. Also, we have Tulane University, USCLA, University of Utah. We are having all those protests. Most of the students who are even participating in these protests, probably they don't understand the history of the Middle East. It's very true that they do not understand where this history of the Middle East started from. The history of the Middle East is long history. We have heard the history of how Abraham was told to go to a promised land in Canaan. And then he went, and then he said, with all the stories, how finally his descendants were taken to Egypt, and they left Canaan for Egypt. They stayed in slavery for 400 years. Then they were brought back to Canaan. And before they arrived, when they arrived in Canaan, that is how the map of Canaan was during the time of Joshua. You know, they had come, Philistine was there. And all these other tribes who were occupying the Ammonites, and all of those people were in that region. So when they came back, when they had lived, there were people in this region. And they occupied the land until they came back. So they came, they conquered the land, and they lived, the Jews lived and flourished under their God. They built kingdoms, and they had a king. The kingdom of Israel and Judah, that time later on when the other kingdoms had come. So they had made a big kingdom. King David had made a big kingdom. And they settled there. That's true. They had everything They lived in Canaan when they settled, and they got everything in place. So then later on, with the many years after the kingdoms, they was conquered by Babylon, or the 10 tribes were lost, and then Judah also was taken into captivity, and everything ended. Jerusalem temple was destroyed. Then finally, in some later years, even if they came back to settle their region by the year 30 BC, then the superpower, the only superpower then was the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire occupied a large area, including Judea, Syria, all of the land which once was the country of Israel. Judea became a province of the Roman Empire. That is the fast forward. So even during the time of Jesus Christ, they were still under, as I said, this was Israel during the time of Jesus. Even when Jesus was in the world, still they were under Roman Empire. And this region was, Judea was a province. But one thing the Romans did, the Romans left them to worship their God. Egypt was there, so they lived and worked in their own country. They were not told that now you worship the Roman gods. They were worshiping the Judaism. That is why, even when Jesus was preaching at that time, they were still they were practicing their own religion. The Christianity, even when the Pontius Pilate, who did that, was, even when Jesus was being crucified, they took him to Pontius Pilate, who was, Herod was the one ruling the area. And then the ministries came after the crucifixion of Jesus. They crucified him, but they continued to leave Christianity to spread. So as I said, the kingdom, the empire, the Roman Empire at its height was covering all this red region, was covering. So they ruled, and later on, then they were conquered. When they left the Romans, and we had other kingdom come in. We had the rise of Islam, and which also dominated. Now the people wanted to come back, but before that, after Jesus' death, the Jews revolted in 66 CE, and the Jerusalem temple was destroyed in 70 CE. That is when now Adrian said that he doesn't want to see the Jews anymore. He killed most of them. Some of them were driven off from Jerusalem to many other places. And that is when, because they never wanted to be associated with the name, the Jews, they changed that place to be called Syria, Palestine. That's how Palestine came, which was the name for Philistine. You see, Philistine, as you saw from the map, Philistine has always been there. Even when they had all this kingdom, it was still there. So when they kicked them out, that is when they built their own temple, Herod's temple in Jerusalem. So for 500 years, the Jews were bent to come to Judea. They wanted to eliminate their history completely. But later on, the Ottoman Empire came. When the Muslims came to Jerusalem, they built the tomb. They had to build the tomb, the rock of the tomb in Jerusalem. They built a big tomb, which they really wanted in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem was, they had built, Solomon's temple was built there for many years, but they also came and built the rock of the tomb in honor of Moses, that's where he ascended to heaven. So they have been receiving. So you build this, that is the Jews asking. So you build this 1,330 years ago, on top of this, which we built on top of their church, which was built 2,978 years ago. And I am here now occupying your land. That is the same question. You see that God is telling them different messages. That is a big question. That is God telling them different messages. Because what we are seeing now in this region, everybody is fighting. Because the rock of the tomb, the tomb of the rock, was built to commemorate the Muslim, and that is where they say they have where Abraham had in Mount Moriah, where Abraham had tried to sacrifice his son. So this is a holy place for everybody. So even later on, when the Christians also came and they built a church there in Jerusalem. At one time, Jerusalem has been divided. The city of Jerusalem is divided. People living there, the Christian quarter, Armenian quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter. So this is a melting point of all. And this, they have lived in existence. The Tomb of the Rock is built there. The Muslims build the mosque there, and these other people also have their own. That is exactly what you can see on this map. If you can see here, probably this looks more figurative. The Christian quarter, all of them, that occurs in Jerusalem itself. So it has been a long history of conflict that everybody believes is worshiping the true God, is an holy city, but they have had all these differences throughout history. So in 1948, they said, now we need to have a Jewish state. Yeah, the Jews were all over the world, and they needed to have their own country. That is how they ended up coming here. So Israel, they created the state of Israel. But the Gaza Strip, the one we are having an issue with, has always been independent, has always been a Palestinian place. It was not touched. But the rest, they said this was their land before. That is where the kingdom of, as I told you, where the kingdom of, you can see the Israel kingdom in yellow, the one for King Solomon was. But now this is a smaller Israel. It was big at that time, but now it's small. And from there, we have had history, conflict. So the Jews came back, they settled. They say this was a progressive. In 1946, the Blue area, that was the only region which was covered by, there were a few fragments of Jewish land. Palestinian was all over. But by 1947, the Jews had occupied a bigger land. 1967, they have expanded. And by 2005, That is how the map was looking. That is a history. You can see they have always tried to say that Israel continued to occupy Palestine. Now, this is where the chinks of the conflict now has come. The Palestinians say this was our land. You have been occupying. But they are also saying for thousands of years, this was our land. The Jews and the Muslims, they share so many things in common. They believe in the same God. They believe, the Arabs believe that they are the descendant of Ismail, who was the first son of Abraham, and the Jews believe they are the descendant of Isaac, who is the heir apparent, whatever the reason. So that is the communication. They believe in one God, but they believe who owns what. So even the people, even the students who are in the universities who are demonstrating, yes, nobody wants to see people being killed. In this region, there have been conflict. If you see, in this region, you can see Gaza is a very small, tiny area covered by Israel. And even these people, they are blockaded because of terrorism. Israel had built a wall, the Iron Wall, they call it the Iron Wall. So this is Gaza. Then they have put cameras and radars which see if there is anything coming from Gaza. And there is a wall equipped with sensors. So there is this area which is no man's land. So going to Israel, they are blockaded. So like they have been hitting them in the northern part. They moved south. They have destroyed south. Now they want to come to Rafah, south, to kill them. And that is why they are saying, oh, help these people. These people are dying. Can we help them? You can see that they have this war. They cannot even go to Egypt. Egypt doesn't want to allow them to go there. So they are actually boxed. They are being beaten after that. So this is what is bringing the issue. They feel like they need to help these people in solving this problem. So how can they do that with all this? They are boxed in a region, and I think that is a reason why many people are complaining that they want a ceasefire to help these people. Yes, Hamas attacked Israel, killing 1,200 people is painful, and nobody is accepting it. But also remember that this thing has a long history. As much as we have to look at both sides. They have suffered. Everybody is suffering. Now we are wondering, whose message do we have to follow here? If indeed this land is being claimed by everybody is claiming it's a small land, it's an unholy land. All this, how do we solve this? How can we interpret this? Are we the one interpreting God's message differently, or are all at Israel the Jews receiving different messages? I would think universities need to put this in perspective. They need to address, yes, how will universities solve all this problem? Still, we have a dilemma, but I hope we can get an answer to this. If people, how did they manage to live in the same quarters where we are having Christian quarter, Armenian quarter? Why are they living in Jerusalem in peace? That they cannot live in peace in the rest of the region. I know it's perplexing, but I'll leave you to answer the question. Are we receiving different messages, or we are interpreting